Hey folks, welcome to Beware the Wizard. So I thought of a cool idea, and that's to scratch build something, a piece of terrain, out of something that I find at a thrift shop. I always love taking apart like electronic devices and things, and I thought, what if I challenge myself to just use one item? So that's exactly what I did, and I created this. So in a few seconds here, I'm going to put the video in of me shopping for the item that I used to create this, and I used only that item, no other materials aside from paint and hot glue, as you'll see in the video. And this, I think this turned out really well. This was definitely a challenge. It was a lot more challenging than traditional scratch building, but I really like the way this turned out. So without further ado, let's jump into this video and figure out how I made this. So these are all the parts that we acquired from taking apart that fan. This is the outer shell. As you can see, some pieces have been cut off of this. I just used my Dremel as part of the previous video to remove any parts I thought were cool, like this kind of side piece here. Anything that had a little bit of detail. And I set those little pieces aside, and then I remove the rest of the sides because I really don't think they're usable. Tools I'm using today are my hot glue gun, super glue, of course, the Dremel, and a box cutter. Very simple. Actually, I think I only used the box cutter like twice in this whole video. So what I'm doing here is basically just fiddling with all of these parts. I like that flat piece as a base, and I'm just kind of dry fitting, seeing what will fit. I really like this kind of angled piece, so I use my Dremel to cut off these little cylinders on there and kind of clean it up a little bit. Basically, I had no idea what I was doing going into this. I had no idea how I was going to use these pieces. I just knew that I wanted to use just this one item that I purchased. So I just sand down these edges just to get the glue to adhere a little better. And then I continue dry fitting. I know I like this piece there, so I'm going to glue it down. And back we go with the thinking process. I basically just fiddle with these a lot in order to kind of create some sort of vision. I know I want to make a platform. I want something raised off. So here we are just cutting some pieces. I thought that would make a cool kind of ramp up there. I really wanted to use that gray kind of guild piece as something a little more vertical, but it just didn't work out. I think it ended up being really nice as this ramp. So after sanding these, we glue everything in place. There we go. I think this actually turned out having a pretty nice profile, a nice shape. And then I wanted to cover up the small gaps underneath. So I started positioning some things along the sides just to kind of hide those gaps. This I thought almost looked cool, like as if it were a piece of like a tunnel. So I cut that to shape and fit it in along the ramp there. At this point, I'm just sort of doing the same process I did before and dry fitting. I really wanted to use this piece as a little more of a platform. I don't think I ended up using it at all. There I am, a little defeated. But we just keep playing. It's a challenge, but it's kind of nice to have a limited supply of things to work with. Because it really gets your creativity moving. This piece I didn't like there. I removed that and ended up making another kind of platform here because I really wanted more surface area for minis or whatever you're using to fit on top of this thing. So I glue that. I put in a few little spacers here just to make that platform a little more flush with the surface. And then everything is glued in place. I thought this box was very cool as sort of like a chest. Initially, I thought of putting it upright as sort of like a cabinet sort of thing, maybe with some electric components inside. But I think what I ended up doing was turning it into like a chest, and it looked really cool. I just kind of put in some pieces here to make it look like it's some sort of maybe like a generator or something like that. And I keep that little flat piece to use as a lid. As you'll see here in a moment, I glue that on kind of on an angle to give the illusion that the top is open to this chest. And then I even put on some tiny little cylinders to act as hinges and prop that open with some scrap while it dries, and then glue that into place. I wanted to make some barriers, something that I think a mini or a character could take cover behind. So here I am just gluing kind of some bits on and putting on this piece here, almost as if it was kind of haphazardly constructed to provide some cover. Remove those braces from that. That lid held up very nicely. And then now I just start gluing on odds and ends here. Really no rhyme or reason to what I'm putting on here, just stuff to fill in gaps like this little piece here and other small spaces that I think are a little bit unsightly. I wanted to leave in as much footage as possible in this video and not cut anything out, which is why I'm speeding up so much of it, because I really wanted you to see my process and just how long it could take to, when you have limited supplies, to figure out something that would fit everywhere. You know, I do a lot of dry fitting, a lot of kind of testing, just holding it there, stopping and thinking for a while until I actually decide where I want something to go. And sometimes there is no real decision. I just grab something and glue it down because I want to keep moving forward and I want the project to be completed. And I have faith that in the end, if you glue on enough random bits and bobs, it's going to look good. This is just another little kind of accent piece to add some detail. And some more. Basically just putting whatever little pieces I think look cool wherever I want here. These are some scraps I'm kind of sticking underneath there to give the illusion that rubble may be piled up underneath certain spots. And as you can see, it's coming along pretty nicely. I really wanted to incorporate these wires as well as these little kind of metal rings. And I thought they almost look like brackets. You know, maybe I could thread the wires through them. So that's exactly what I do here. I bent the end at a right angle and I'm just gluing it onto the side here. And then I'll be feeding wires through that to give the illusion that they're hanging there. I bend a second one and I glue it onto the other kind of wall here. I then take a group of 3 wires and I glue them into this kind of plastic piece. And that piece just makes it easier to fit inside and hide the end of those wires under there without having to glue them individually. And then to give a nice look to the wires, I braid them. And then feed them through those rings. Now when I feed them through, I'm going to give them a little pinch to give the illusion that they're actually hanging. The wires can be a little stiff, and in miniature format, it doesn't look too realistic. So here I kind of pinch them and try to get that look that they're just kind of draped between those brackets. Then I glue the other ends to a small piece of scrap just to make it easier to fit in and hide them underneath. And that is basically our finished project. We're about to start priming here. I'm really happy with the way this turned out, and I used quite a bit of that fan that I took apart. Here's the primed piece. I didn't film the painting part because my garage is a disaster. We're gonna go through first and just paint on with some gray, anything that I think would be metal. So we're just gonna fast forward through these painting parts. I know I'm not the greatest painter in the world, very streaky. I actually end up going through and doing another coat on some of these just to get rid of some of the streakiness. Now when I'm working with colors, and I do like to add just very simple colors, usually 1 or 2 colors, I tone the paint down with whatever paint I was using before. In this case, it's the gray. So when I use this kind of bright blue color, I mute it a little bit with the gray so it's not too flashy on the piece, and it gives it a nice cohesive look. I then take that blue and paint just very specific parts. I kind of go through, and whatever I didn't want gray, I paint blue, and leaving some pieces unpainted because I want to use that yellow color as well. And again, I tone that yellow a little bit just to make it a little more cohesive with the rest of the piece, and paint some of that on as well. At this point, I think I do go back in with the gray and a little bit of blue and just kind of touch up some of those really streaky spots. I paint the base gray, not paying too close attention to the little nooks and crannies. I like to leave those black, which is why it's really nice to spray paint, because you get those deep shadows in there that your brush can't exactly get to. Now, after letting that dry, we go through a dark wash. This dark wash was made with black acrylic paint, a little bit of dish soap, and lots of water. This is probably my favorite part of any painting job because it really brings out the dark, gritty shadows. This paint mixture will pool anywhere it can collect, and it will dry and darken, and it really gives the illusion that there's some contrast. Makes a more kind of dynamic piece. I just slop that on liberally wherever I can get it. And then we go in with a dry brush. Again, not the greatest painter. I actually ended up doing this a little early. Some of the dark wash wasn't completely dry. But it still kind of gave a cool effect, just to give like a weathered look, bring out some of the highlights on the more weathered areas. It just adds a little more of a dynamic look. And that's basically it. That is it for the painting. Now we'll take a look at some glamour shots. All right, so there you have it, my scratch build using one item from the thrift shop. This was definitely, like I said, a lot more challenging than I thought it was going to be, but I think it turned out really well. I'm very satisfied, very proud of this. As I mentioned earlier, if you want to see a little extended video clip of the shopping section and my process of tearing this apart, I do have that video over on Patreon. If you'd like to go over there, I would greatly appreciate that. If not, no worries. Give a like and a subscribe if you want, and I'll catch you on the next video. Thanks, guys.